Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar, Listen to Your Products, Rethink the Way You Build and License Your Products. My name is Julie Donnell, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we begin, just a few simple logistics. First of all, our webinar speakers today are Andrew Dailey. Andrew is the Managing Director at MGI Research. He has more than 25 years working in the technology and financial services fields. He's advised numerous Fortune 500 companies, and he's authored many industry-leading research papers. He also is the current director of Carbon Vault. Eddie McNeil is also joining us today, and he is a principal business value consultant with Thales. Eddie has more than a decade of effort in the software monetization industry. He advises customers on digital transformation and monetization strategies. Eddie is a speaker and thought leader who helps customers to bring best practices to life. So thank you for Andrew and Eddie for their contributions today. So we will be recording the webinar, and you will be receiving an email with details on how to access this after the fact. So don't feel like you need to be furiously taking notes during the session. And we want to hear from you. So please feel free to add questions in the Q&A in the chat window, and we will provide a session at the end. So I'd like to start by now handing things off to Andrew.
Thanks, Julie, and welcome everyone. This is Andrew Dailey of MGI Research, and it's a real pleasure to be with everyone today in these most unusual of times. Just to start, for those of you who don't know MGI Research, founded in 2008, we are a group of leading industry and investment analysts and technology executives. MGI provides business, finance, and IT executives with subscription-based research and advisory services. And we bring a seasoned team. Each analyst has over 25 years of industry experience working with mid to very large size enterprises in North America, Europe, and Asia. And we are the only independent analyst firm with a unique focus on monetization. So with that, let me see if I can operate the slides, and we will go to the key issues. Actually, Julie, if you could move them forward, that would be great. Thank you. So key issues we're going to talk about. One, we can't not talk about what are some of the lessons we've learned so far from these very early days in the coronavirus experience, and how do those relate to monetization. I'll talk about why does monetization matter? Why are we here, and how does that relate to how we build, develop, and support products over time? We'll spend a little bit of time talking about how customer expectations are likely to change. And then we'll look at what are some of the investment opportunities that can drive more customer intimacy, more seamless customer experience, and improve our ability to monetize. So with that, let's go to the next slide. So the coronavirus is obviously an unprecedented event, as most countries are now going into the second month of combating this. We can take a little bit of stock of kind of where we're coming from and what we've learned, and possibly talk about kind of how it relates to customer relationships and the state of business overall. At MGI, we began private briefings with our CEO clients in the second week of March, and we began by just laying out some different scenarios and the associated timing and probabilities of those different scenarios to help guide our clients' decision-making process. And certainly the shock to local and global commerce as I mentioned, is without precedent, and it's likely that these effects are going to be felt for years to come. What we have learned so far is pretty clear. The first is that staying close to our employees, to our customers, and suppliers has never been so important. The second is this event is really a clarion call for business agility and the true digitization of business. Every single manual intervention that existed before in any process is now completely exposed. And we're seeing that the companies that have become or were fully digital are showing much greater resilience than those that weren't. And third, we're seeing that a digital customer experience is not only about a modern front end, it's about a fully automated back end that gives our customers and partners the ability to interact and transact with our organizations with as close to zero human intervention as possible. So with that, let's talk about why does monetization matter? What's so important about this? So if we can go to the next slide. If you think about any of the single major issues that we talk about today, whether it's coronavirus or what we were talking about pre-C19, the age of the continuous customer, the always-on customer, the Internet of Things, the subscription economy, pick any one of those topics or all of them, and the underlying characteristics and requirements for each one are very similar. And that is, in the need to respond to customer needs, we need to be able to create unique offers and to be able to scale the business, to scale our business without adding more people. So how do we create customization without having to add more people to support those customized offers and solutions? We need to come up with new ways to monetize the value that's being delivered or the value that's being received. And it's really about the need to take massive amounts of data from a variety of different sources, in particular from the product itself, and then to translate that into a spectrum of charges and other data that can be used to inform conversations with our customers, to inform product development, and to inform both current and future pricing and monetization strategies. And often the time sensitivities around the need for that data exceeds the current capabilities of our systems. We need to know what was consumed today, not just over the last 30 days. We need to be able to look at and project what consumption trends will look like over time and what our cash flow of that, what our cash flow will look like. What is the realizable cash that will come from those consumption trends over time? We need to be able to look at which features and capabilities of the product or service are used most, where are customers spending the most time, consuming the most resource, where are they finding the most value in our services. And at its most basic, monetization matters because whether or not we speak or meet with a customer in a given week, month, or even quarter, our customer is likely to receive a bill from us. And that's the moment in which we can either confuse and disappoint the customer, or we can provide clarity, simplicity, and even transparency. And that can result ultimately in customer delight. Transparency engenders trust, which in turn gives us the permission to ask for more business. And it helps ensure that we get paid in a timely fashion. And getting paid faster has never been such a high priority as it is today. So let's take a look at, in the next slide, what do customers want? Customers today want agency. And what we're seeing is the experience that we all see as individual consumers in the B2C world in terms of finding information about a product or service online, becoming informed about it, and then engaging with a company, whether it's offline or online, to actually buy that product. We're all doing a lot of our own homework before we even talk to the actual company that we might be buying from. And that same personal experience is translating into the business world. We see that in our practice, where when we get engaged in product evaluations and selections, the clients have already done 75–80% of the effort in terms of becoming informed about different solutions in the market before they've even talked to a given supplier. We also have this expectation as customers and consumers to want to be able to self-manage and self-provision. The experience that we see through Amazon and things like their subscribe and save service, especially now when the service is not quite what it was, we want to be able to do that in the business context too. The ability to go online, look at what have we spent on a given product or with a given supplier, what is the consumption trend looking like, and to be able to get a statement balance immediately, not in 15 days, not in 30 days. And ultimately, as we say, your customers don't want to talk to you. They want to be able to go online and manage themselves. They want to be able to purchase more, purchase less, and to be able to do that in a seamless, kind of contactless kind of way. So if we go to the next slide here, we'll take a look at, in the desire to create more customer intimacy and provide a more modern customer experience, what we see is most organizations look at a very small part of that journey, which is the front end. And while a focus on the front end of systems and the commerce systems is very important, our research shows that that's not enough. And providing a seamless customer experience really requires the elimination of friction through the entire customer journey. And we reference back to some of the early marketing work that was done out of Apple. Regis McKenna, who was really kind of one of the first marketing gurus in Silicon Valley, talked about the concept of a whole product. And the notion was that a product is not the individual widget. It's not just the software that's being delivered or the piece of hardware and software that's being delivered. The whole product is really what the customer experiences through the entire engagement with a company. It's the engagement with the sales organization. How well do they understand my needs? How well did they anticipate my future needs? It's the engagement with support and with the entire back office. And ultimately, it's the engagement even in receiving the bill. How easy is it to understand that bill? How transparent is it? And when you start looking at it from that whole customer journey, in most organizations, there's a tremendous amount of friction through that life cycle. And we're all kind of experiencing where these manual processes are, in particular during this lockdown, when everything now has to be online. So for example, customers are experiencing or expecting kind of this instant on product experience, but that's hard to deliver when we have a product or service that requires manual provisioning. There's been a revolution in B2B payments that started over the last 12 to 24 months, but in reality, less than 5% of companies have really started to take advantage of both the cost savings and the customer benefits that can be delivered with these more modern payment methods. And digital payments, as a matter of fact, are kind of in the spotlight today, as we see that check and physical cash handling is very difficult. So when we look at how do we get closer to the customer, we first like to step back and say, where is the friction in that customer journey, not just through through the lens of the product, but through the whole life cycle of the acquisition, implementation, ongoing usage of the product, and the engagement with the company overall. So if we go to the next slide, we talk about what is a digital business, what does it mean to be digital, and we think it's important to have a very clear definition of what constitutes a digital business. And we think of that in terms of kind of a zero-first definition. And we think about it in terms of zero latency, zero manual intervention, zero paper, even zero use of Microsoft Excel, which is the ultimate end tool to solve things. And we think about it in terms of an orientation that puts the customer first, data first, clean data first, and APIs first. And when we start thinking about what are the solutions that can help us, this is kind of a good way to think about how do those solutions fit with our needs. Do they have a data first approach? Do they have a cloud first approach? Do they have an API first kind of approach? So if we go to take a look at the next slide here, we have collected through the course of our research kind of what we call the 13 deadly sins of monetization, which is what's holding organizations back from becoming more digital, what's holding organizations back from being more agile. And we've yet to walk into an organization, into a boardroom or conference room with a group of people sitting around the table and not have a company raise their hand and say, yes, we've got number 2, 7, 9, and 12, or whatever it may be for them. But these 13 items typically are prevalent in many organizations. And some of these, have a very real dollar value that has real impact today. So if you look at revenue leakage, item number 4 here on our list, most organizations have 2 to 5% revenue leakage, which is an inability to collect on what a customer has contracted for because of an inability to bill for it, an inability to track the usage of it. And that's real money that goes straight to the bottom line. So this is just one way an organization can assess how it's doing in terms of monetization and how digital it may be. So if we go to the next slide, at MGI, we envision a kind of a platform capability that we've dubbed AMP, or an Agile Monetization Platform, that has about 12 or 13 components, including some of the core elements like financials, like CPQ or configure, price, quote, customer service, obviously, e-commerce. And then there's some others that you don't see here, like entitlements. We think all of these are critical ingredients for a seamless, on the back end, to be able to deliver on the front end, a seamless customer experience. And so this is a picture of something that today can't be found from a single supplier, but this is ultimately what the market wants and what the market needs. And many leading organizations are beginning to incubate and integrate these different capabilities. And we see more suppliers beginning to expand out in terms of their capability to deliver a more seamless quote to cash, or as we think about it, a revitalized prospect to disclosure process that's a continuous cycle. And the world is increasingly difficult to predict, and applying the traditional kind of hard-coded multi-year ERP type approach is just not tenable anymore. And we believe the only viable strategy going forward will be in adopting a late binding, highly flexible environment. It's a set of components for monetization that are at once both collaborative and potentially maybe even disposable. So if we go to the next slide, we talk about what does monetization nirvana look like, and deliberately defining the future state is a helpful and enlightening kind of exercise. And it starts with what are the goals of the organization, which typically center around accelerating or reigniting growth. It's about enabling greater agility and increasing retention and lowering churn. And that reducing churn, eliminating revenue leakage, providing customers with more flexibility and agency, those are really going to be essential for really business survival for the next 12 to 24 months. We also see that achieving a dramatic improvement in data quality and data integrity is foundational to this future state. And a part of that is being able to determine profitability at a very granular level. And to be able to do that requires clean data and a new set of tools to be able to assess that profitability at such a granular level. And so finally, we look at it and say that nirvana is reached when customers and partners stop saying, that company has great products, but it sure is hard to do business with them. So monetization nirvana in our book is when customers start saying, wow, what a delight it is to do business with that company. And if we take a look in the next slide here, we talk about what are some of the real hard numbers that we've seen so far in terms of investments in different disciplines within an agile monetization platform. So investing in monetization yields, real financial results, and it comes from faster time to revenue, faster time to market, more flexibility in our product packaging, reductions in canceled orders, the ability to meet higher service levels, the ability to accurately align pricing models with how the product is actually being used and how the value is perceived. It's about eliminating the misuse of product and really being able to have a fact-based, data-driven conversation with our customers about their consumption of our product and services. And the list goes on. Be happy to discuss that with anyone going forward. If we go to the next slide. So we talked about kind of 15 to 28% annual IRR on a sustained basis from investment in monetization. And in the next slide, we look at case studies from 4 different sizes of companies. So taking a jumbo-sized company, a very large enterprise, a mid-sized business, and a small SMB kind of business. And here you see the differences in costs measured in thousands of dollars and in time measured in days, and the difference in comparing an agile modern approach with modern tooling versus taking traditional methods or maybe in-house developed tools. And in both time and money, the differences in taking, as it's shown in green here, an agile approach is staggering. And the benefits in terms of time, it's typically a third of the time compared to a legacy approach, and it's done at a fraction of the cost. So there's plenty of case studies and research and evidence that we've seen and continue to collect that shows that this is an area of investment that yields very real financial results and very real results in terms of increasing customer satisfaction, increasing customer adoption of our products and services. And so finally, if we look in conclusion here for my section and go to the next slide, whether our business is a high-performance racehorse, the mythical unicorn, or a steadfast, profitable mule, there's always room for improvement. And we look at any of the major business trends whether it's continuous customer, industry 4.0, or how we're all going to recover and rebound from the coronavirus, underlying and powering every one of these and critical to the success of every one of those, including how we rebound from COVID-19, is really our ability to monetize. And there's a whole new universe of opportunities. There's also some risks that await. We can certainly conceptualize a lot of these opportunities. Some we don't see. But what we do know is that this process it's a journey, and the most important thing is taking that first step and getting onto that journey. And we also know that doing nothing is no longer a choice. So with that, let me hand it off to Eddie McNeil. Over to you, Eddie.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Andrew. Sorry, just trying to get myself off mute. What we're looking at is we're looking at some of the aspects that we can help with to be able to listen to your products and to help solve some of those aspects that Andrew went through. So we really need to look at what we have been doing in the past as product management, and what we can do in the future, and what we really want to see to enable those agile changes and flexible models to be developed and delivered to our customers. So if we think about the product roadmap conundrum, so the product manager has to prioritize different features within a big market, across a lot of different needs. And today, PMs typically use a combination of gut instinct, market research, educated guesses, customer feedback as well, to try and guess what the next feature is that needs to be prioritized within the roadmap. And they're looking often at 18 month to 3 year roadmaps. So they're going to have to guess what the trend's going to be as they go along, without really having the data there to be able to justify the take-up of the feature. One of the things that a product manager doesn't want to do is they don't want to, and as a business, you don't want to develop a feature for maybe a couple of customers that actually isn't going to be used by other customers. It devalues that feature. So one of the things we do see, because there's so much competitive intelligence around, it's much easier now to find information on your competitors and what they're actually planning to do, the trends from the market analysts. It does actually present a challenge in that you really don't stand out from your competitors. So you develop a copycat syndrome, and you're just following trends and not following the data. So really what we need to be doing is we need to be able to develop the products based on what we're seeing in terms of data trends and the way that the trends are moving. And that may uncover actually some key features that you think are a hygiene feature that are actually very, very valuable to the customer. So market research just on its own and analyst research is just not enough. We can't just rely on surveys or reactive or historical data. The markets are moving so quickly now, and the customers are much more demanding on what they actually want to see. So as product managers, as experts, we're expected to know our market and the product better than any of our customers. The customers kind of know what they need, but they don't necessarily know what they want and what they can do to achieve it. In fact, Steve Jobs famously said that it's not his job to give customers what they want, rather than figure out what they need before they actually want it. And Henry Ford, exactly the same thing. It's another great quote. If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. the public at the time and the customers knew what they needed. They needed to get from one place to another place quicker, so they wanted speed. They didn't even know that what options they had. They didn't know that a car was even possible, and whether it would be adopted widely within a market. So we do have to look at what we have, and what the value is to the end customer. So we now more and more, as we're moving to subscription-based license models as well. It really is a new era on how you're going to develop your product. You can't be expected to put a killer feature into a product. And one of the reasons for that in subscription is because the rules are different. You're really actually looking to create increased value over time for your customers with your product. And if you don't know what they value from your products, in other words, what they're actually using from your product and what they're not using, it's very difficult to be able to even move to subscription successfully, because you won't be providing the expected value to the customers. So creating value in the subscription economy, customers are expecting a constant stream of value over the lifetime of the product releases. You don't really see any big bang releases now. I mean, even Microsoft, does anybody know what version of Microsoft 365 they're on? Same again with Salesforce. What version of Salesforce are they on? No, because they're always continuing to add new features and new products and more value over time, so that it enables you to look at your customers' business problems and create the value for their customers. So you're not actually creating a product for them anymore. You're creating an outcome for their value. And as we look at the subscription economy growing, and it is growing rapidly, we do see that the market is accelerating, even in traditional hardware companies that we see that have just sold hardware and not really sold software before. We're seeing them move from perpetual licensing to subscription licensing, but not everything. So you need to be able to have a solution that offers you the flexibility to still provide your customers that are maybe slower moving, maybe they're more heavily regulated, to the ones that are really trying to create value and innovate within that business. So you need to be able to have that mix and the ability to flip the business model between a perpetual to a subscription economy overnight, rather than trying to release out over 90 days, for example, a new product that actually provides subscription. We should remember that subscription doesn't just incorporate the software as a service companies either. Many of our customers and many of the customers we see in analyst data, they are actually on-premise customers. They're actually offering a subscription-based license model for. Often it's the value add part. So the standard package, or the basic package, if you like, is still on perpetual, but the added value is the value that actually creates the market space for them will actually be in the subscription part of the product. So you can mix and match the features that are going to be perpetual and the features that will be based on subscription. So we are seeing a lot more hybrid environments coming into the market. So where they're using maybe the functionality within industrial automation, for example, on site, on premise, and then the data is being put into the cloud for machine learning and data analytics. So where do we go now? So where is the future? And really, what product owners want to know is they really want to know how their products are actually being used. So who's using the software? Which customers are using it most? Are they losing any customers over churn because of a particular feature is not being used and it's not being valued? are people actively using the software or not? So they want to remove the conversation that the customer may have with you around shelfware. So if you know that your customers are actually using the features within the products and are actively using them, so they've activated them, that you're getting usage reports back off them, and you're actually seeing that they're actually gaining benefits out of that product, then when you come to renew, you've got an effective renewal date as well. So it's much a higher possibility they're going to renew if they're using it all the time. Now there may be triggers in there as well that you may want to think about, where if the customers aren't or are sporadically using the software, or not many people are using the software, then there may be an opportunity for you to go in and sell some training, because maybe they need some more education on the particular parts of software that they're trying to use, and that should bring benefit to their business. So really we're looking at a change. So licensing has traditionally been all about IP protection. It's been about enforcements. We see the markets moving, and it's been moving over the last couple of years to revenue intelligence. So it's really about understanding where your revenue is coming from, where the revenue opportunities are, and how you can gain benefit out of those revenue opportunities to maximize the value of your product within your customers. So you need the visibility within the products, so that you can actually find out what's actually happening within your products, to be able to make those key decisions for the business as to where you're going to make your investments, how the customers are going to react, how what purchase types and churn rates you may see on different products and different features. So that we can use machine learning and artificial intelligence tools to be able to take the data, to be able to predict the trends, so you're actually ahead of the curve rather than trying to catch up and react to data that maybe is 6 months old. Because as we know at the moment, things are changing very rapidly, particularly with COVID. Then you want to be able to change rapidly to be able to match that. So really, to capture new markets and to be able to be flexible within your business, and to maintain the customer's satisfaction and the customer success and adding value to your customers, you need to be able to have the ability to flip your business model, because you will have lots of different customers that will want different ways of selling to their customers. So one market may want to buy perpetual, one market may want to buy subscription, one market may want to be charged on usage. They don't need to be 3 separate products. They can be one product, and they just have different license models associated with them. License models for new markets. Working with a customer at the moment where they have some customers that won't move away from perpetual, but their new markets and where they actually want to grow their business is they actually want to move to subscription. It's a completely different model that they have. And offering those flexible packaging options and having the data insight to understand what features need to go into those packages is essential to be able to create those valuable packages. If you understand what people are actually using as a hygiene feature, then that's great. That can go in the basic package. If you understand what people are using in terms of the high value customers, those features are the ones that are creating the most value for their customers, and being able to change the packaging rapidly to meet the changing markets will be essential for success. Apologies, a bit slow going forward at the moment. Okay, so creating the journey to creating value creation. So typically you'll be a software vendor or a device vendor. You'll sell either direct to or through a channel or through multiple channels, and then you get to the customer and it's successful. But there are steps in the journey to go through. You need to have a look at your revenue streams. Most of our customers, the reason they're changing and the reason they're coming to us with monetization is because they want to grow. They want to grow their revenue. So offering those flexible packages, being able to offer trials to be able to evaluate what data or what features are beneficial to the customer, or what features probably aren't worth putting into the products. It's very important. Track expiration so you can understand what the renewal trends are going to look like and what the renewal notifications are, so be able to automatically enable your customers to renew their product, so you reduce churn. Operational efficiency, so you need to be able to automate the end-to-end quote-to-cash process. That will enable you to grow your business without having to grow your investment in more staff, and that really also is essential for creating a good customer experience. Customer satisfaction or customer experience, enable your customer to have self-service, so give them the opportunity to understand what they purchased. So the end user knows what they purchased, you know what they purchased, so it makes the conversation, if they need to upgrade or they need to buy more licenses, makes that conversation much easier because it's much more transparent. Being able to auto update and instantly deliver new versions of the software to entitled customers, so they have the entitlement for the products, they can use it, and they can also use the updates as well. And then we also have business insights, so monitoring the activations, so you have a two-way communication. Lots of our customers that we talk to, particularly within moving from hardware to software, have very poor visibility of their install base, and that's because they have maybe sold a product to a customer, they've upgraded several times the software, and they haven't had the activation notice come back to the back office to say that actually this customer is actually using this version of the product. One of the implications of that is when you have a service engineer go on site, they often have to take much more time in understanding what the customer actually has installed and is actually using and has activated, rather than going in with the right equipment and the right software version to upgrade to, and then getting out of the door quickly. Access to version data, tracking the renewals, and also generating reports. But it goes more than generating reports now. We're actually looking at predicting the trends within the usage of the different features, and then the value is provided to the customer. So using machine learning, using huge data sets that we have from other customers, then we can actually generate a insight into how your business will look in the future as well. So to close, revenue intelligence providers are leading the charge in delivering on the promise of what Salesforce automation was supposed to do. So predicting how your business is going to look in the future, looking at taking those big data sets and making predictions and using trend analysis to be able to help you to understand the predictability of your customers in terms of churn, in terms of renewal rates, in terms of features being used and investment dollars that you're making in the products. So thank you very much for that. We're now going to, I believe, opening up for questions.
Thank you, Eddie, and thank you, Andrew. We're now going to take a look at the questions that have been submitted. And the first question for both of you is, if you're a company that's looking to adopt a recurring revenue model, what are some best practices or practical recommendations to get started?
Yeah, so Eddie, this is Andrew. I'll go first, and if you want to add to that.
Sure.
So I think the first thing is, in looking at that, is to realize that that's an effort that cuts across many different organizations, many different functional boundaries within the company. So it really requires the engagement of everyone from finance, product management, sales operations, support, fulfillment. So across legal, so across the entire, much of the spectrum of the business has to be involved in making that shift. The second thing is that it really requires taking a hard look at the existing systems that support your quote to cash process and figuring out if they can handle what's necessary for a recurring revenue business. And what we've discovered through our survey work and with clients on directly is that most organizations that go from a one-time charge model to a subscription very quickly then want to look at a whole variety of different charging models and business models. So what you see is that most companies don't go from selling in the software context, say selling on-prem to selling a subscription and then life is hunky-dory. What happens is you go from selling on-prem to selling a subscription to selling a whole range of different models. And so it's very important to make sure that you've got the tools from a finance and business point of view to support that whole range of different possibilities, not just to support the subscription model alone. So that would be my recommendation. Eddie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Andrew hits on a great point. Is that when you're changing your license model, you're actually changing your business model. So if you think about the amount of people that will be involved and the stakeholders within the business will be involved in changing the business model, as Andrew says, it impacts sales, it impacts finance, it impacts the ordering process. It really does impact the whole of the organization. We typically talk to between 10 and 12 different departments when we make a readiness assessment for the customers. It does require to have some ability to incorporate the current systems that you use in terms of an ecosystem. So that would involve your typical ERP systems, but also some billing aspects on there as well for subscription. It would involve entitlement management, and it really is an ecosystem to be able to manage that. One of the other areas I would say is that you have to remember that this is a business change, so it's also a cultural change. Moving from perpetual to subscription, you will need to be much closer to your customer. Perpetual, you're selling them a license, and maybe they're renewing a maintenance, maybe they're not. When you're selling a subscription, you really need to delight the customers all the time and add value all the time. There's some research that Harvard Business Review did that if customers on subscription have a poor user experience, then they are 58% less likely to renew. Whereas if they have a delighted customer experience, then the lifetime value of the customer increases by 140%. So it's not just about putting in technology. It's about how your business is going to change and how the strategy of the business is going to change going forward.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so the next question that I'm seeing is, do you both think that the COVID-19 will accelerate or decelerate trends that might have been in place before the pandemic happened? What are your thoughts on that?
So from my point of view, I think it's going to increase trends. Any disruption this wide and this global and this deep is going to create a lot of innovation around the markets. There'll be new companies springing up places. There'll be divestitures as well. But I do see that there'll be a lot of need to be able to move quickly, move agilely, and move flexibly in terms of offering different models quickly to the market and be able to manage the innovation. So the large companies, the large enterprise companies, where they traditionally take quite a long time to change, I can see them changing much more rapidly with the right tools in place to be able to cope with the increasing demand from innovative companies trying to take some of their niche markets.
Yeah, I would add to that, yeah, just adding to that, I think certainly industries that were facing challenges before this pandemic are now facing existential threat. So that's obvious in the retail space. It's obvious in a handful of other spaces. What's also coming to the surface is that industries that were thinking about new models are now really accelerating the move to those models. So as an example, in the automotive industry, some of the large automotive manufacturers globally, most of them, if you analyze their business, they've got somewhere between 12, the average automotive company's got between 12 and 24 different business models that they support. So not that many when you consider the size and the scope of their business. A number of them are looking at disaggregating the value of the vehicle. So you talk about subscribing to transportation or transportation as a service. There's a whole different variety of models that they're looking at. Some of those companies, even before the pandemic, were looking at going from 15 business models to on the order of 150 different models. And what we're seeing is as they get their arms around their employees, as they get their arms around the supply side and get the factories back up and running, at the same time, right now, they're looking at how do they move even faster to those new business models. So I would just agree with Eddie that I think what's going to happen is this is going to accelerate the need for more business agility. That means the need for new business models and the need to support a whole variety of new models.
Excellent. Thank you. Those perspectives definitely make sense. So we're nearly at time today. So Andrew, Eddie, we greatly appreciate all these best practices that you've been able to share with us today. And this concludes the webinar, Listen to Your Product. Thank you all for attending.